Welcome to Tobi's Arts Performed podcast. Sorry, that sounds ridiculous. That's my TV presenter voice. I'm going to radio DJ mode. Welcome to Tobi's Arts Performed podcast. On this platform, Tobi will engage with various artists and consumers of art about their passions and interests. My name is Richard Dedomenici, and I am an artist.
Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode. I am your host, Tobi. This is the second part of performance artist Richard Dedomenici and artist director of 30 Bird, Mehrdad Seyf's interview. They continue to talk about their collaboration to get Chris de Burgh on tour in Iran and their interdisciplinary ethic. Particularly interesting is their very different art forms that complement, as they both engage with humour and the visual, but in different ways.
In a sense, two things come into that. For me personally, one is the visual is really, really important. So the visual experience of what people are actually seeing and where they're part of, is very important. But the other one is very similar to Richard, but is the humour. That's really important. I think because it's challenging. The thing about interdisciplinarity is that each discipline kind of develops its own very specialist language, which only certain type of people with that specialist knowledge have access to, and the rest of us have to sort of like bow in amazement or wonder. And in a sense, this type of work, both I think Richard's, but both of mine also in a different way, challenges that specialism, and by mixing the spaces, suddenly, you get a scientist sitting on a toilet with holding a chimney walking around, but you get people to talk and raise questions. So it actually says that, no, you can talk about anything from wherever you are, It doesn't matter whatever your position is, whatever your degree of knowledge is, in inverted commas, you can actually engage. So these situations, if you like, provides the possibility for that kind of encounter. Yeah. Whereas otherwise, you go and they demonstrate to you, look at what we have done, and let us tell you. It becomes much more, what's the word? Anyway, much more sort of teaching rather than an experience.
Can you define how you are an artist?
Well, no, all of those are art forms. Definitely,
definitely
they are. Not anybody who says not. I suppose it's the way people refer to these things, artists, in terms of visual artists. Yeah. And so anything else.
But even within myself, I find it difficult to say that a writer is an artist and a filmmaker is an artist. A theatrical performance is an artwork. Even though I know that it is.
Yeah. Why do you find it difficult?
I don't know. There's a kind of split between my expectations and kind of how I've been indoctrinated, I suppose. Sure. But what I recognise also that these things are art.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think I define myself now. I describe myself rather as an interdisciplinary artist, because that's or spatial artists. But no, they're all arts, definitely. And I think in a sense, that's where the original question that you raised about our performance, whether is it performance, is it a lecture? But no, I mean, God, it is all these things. I mean, one of the things that came out, to put it in that context, midway of our many conversations about this project, one of my concerns, not concern, but mainly because I'd seen a lot of, if you like, lecture performances, and I've done some of it myself as well. So I was a bit concerned that the great danger is we're all getting stuck in that form and we stop questioning it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we just keep doing the same thing. And so the idea of the cafe came up, suddenly, which through that came the dancing, and that came later, and then Puya's music and the film, which all this is good. So suddenly there was another aspect to this whole performance and the food, as well. So I think art and being an artist and art is much more complex than just visual art, but also it used to be all interdisciplinary anyway. Interdisciplinarity is not something new
Yeah.
In the old days, it was all mixed up. Everything was mixed up. So actually, divisions into disciplines is quite new, quite young. Not new, but young. You know what I mean, compared to the stuff. But yeah, no.
You spoke briefly in the performance about Iranian society in terms of art forms like poetry and stuff. Like that.
Yeah.
It's not separate from the culture; it's part of the culture.
Yeah, I mean, but that's, you know, of course. But I don't think you said the art is separate from the culture anyway. It's part of the culture. But I mean, I suppose like even with that, with the poetry one, what we did, but the translation of Lady in Red into Farsi is bloody awful. I mean, it's like the worst kind of poem you can find.
Is it even worse than the English?
Oh
original?
no! In English, you know,
Yeah.
even when he sings about the highlights in your hair, it's the rhymes, but you know, but they tried to sort of give it a poetic.
Wow, so it's even worse.
It's terrible.
That's great.
So, but you know, poetry reading, you know, it has cultural, political significances. It's like rock and roll. It really is. You know? So when you get somebody, there's a very famous young woman now who's a poet in Iran, and she sings this epic. She not sings, reads these epic poems in difficult political situations, and you know, and people are just, you know, amazed by her, and it's very subtle what she says. So we used all that form to undermine it completely by, you know, saying things like, you know, the highlights in your hair are amazing. You know, when somebody else would use it as if to question the authority of the government. In a sense, you know, there's a duality because these forms need to be questioned. You know, no matter how interesting they are in themselves. You know, and no matter what interesting products come out of them, which they do. You know. But you have to be careful because if they become too settled and too sort of established, then they become exclusive and they would exclude other people who want to do interesting stuff, like Tara and Puya with us. They have examples of Iranian artists who, you know, are outside those boxes.
Yeah.
They do crazy things.
My question to you, Mehrdad, is do you consider the lyrics of Chris de Burgh to be true art?
I consider the lyrics of Was it Lady in Red, Chris de Burgh, to be pure torture for me generally. I just never warmed up to Chris de Burgh. I refuse to get involved in that discussion.
He doesn't want to say. I've got a very low tolerance for what art can be.
Right.
Even me, you know, I remember the first time I saw a bit of performance art, which was quite late in my life. I was in my early 20s before I even knew what performance art was. I thought it was ridiculous. I started laughing at it. I didn't think it was, you know, I was like, I didn't know how to interpret what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And that was useful for me because I see that in other people sometimes when they see me perform. And I think it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Often the art gets in the way, so often I try and make work which isn't obviously art. There's no signpost to say this is a piece of art that's happening in the street. That's why I like performing in the street, because people don't necessarily interpret it as art, which I think can often, you know, engage with people, because people do have there's some stigmas associated with art. You know, people think, oh, it's, you know, I don't understand it. You know,
well,
it's not for me. And I think, you know, art should be for everybody. And
I 100% agree. Sorry to interrupt. I totally agree with that, in the sense that if art is only for an elite group of people who come and just say, "Wow, that was interesting,"
then it will die.
Yeah, exactly. And in a sense, I also think that people generally from whatever background, as mentioned earlier, they have to come and interpret and engage. You know, but if you put it in a setting where certain people are expected to think in a certain way. You know, when I was doing my even experimental theatre shows for a theatre audience, because they came in expecting a plot, beginning, middle, and end characters, and mine were like visual mix-ups and, you know, crazy. Yeah. They're just like, what is that? It's not theatre. So what is this? You know, this is, whereas, you know, so that is really important. Art is for everyone. That's a serious statement. You know, I would totally agree with that.
This is why I want to take my street cabinet performance to Tehran. I think this would be a great way to engage with new audiences.
I think it would be. It's just how we get to it.
In the box. Just transport me there in the box. I think maybe trying to sneak me in a box is the way.
All the things you mentioned about China, how the Chinese wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would do it.
The Iranians would.
That's
yeah. Well, I think this is where Anthony got the idea of getting me involved with this Iranian project, because he knew that I'd previously done performances about sort of censorship and pop music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it seemed like an obvious fit, I think.
Yeah.
But it's presented more of a challenge than I think maybe I anticipated. I don't know about you. I think you were pretty sure from the beginning that it might not be doable.
Well, no, but what I didn't get. This is interesting because we're obviously taking this very seriously in terms of so we're going to try to get Richard to Iran. We're going to get and so when 3 years later, when I was reading our application to the Arts Council again, I could not stop laughing. I was just like, this is hilarious. This is like a brilliant comedy piece. But when we were doing it, it wasn't a comedy piece, not for me anyway.
No.
I mean, we were, there was funny moments to it.
But we were very serious.
But we were extremely serious about it. And then we realised, okay, so hang on a minute, you've completely misunderstood this project. I'm still telling to myself, is that actually the whole the comedy of this, the humour in this is in a total failure, and the fact that this looks like an espionage documentary, trying to get him to go and work with the underground artist, we're doing underground this, underground that, and countries get upset about cultural invasion, especially. And that's how you want to dethrone or get rid of the government people. So we didn't realise what we were.
So
what material we've got.
That leads me to a question about art in Iran as opposed to art over here. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you can interact with this in terms of your Italian heritage. How is art performed, created and received? How is it different from here or compared to in Iran?
Okay. Well, my first thing I would say about it is I don't want to speak as a represent. No. It's very important as a representative of Iran or Iranian art, or here I am, and I can tell you what it's like, because that's I know some things about it. Visual arts is extremely powerful in Iran, and the music tradition is very powerful. There's an interesting theatre tradition as well going on, and more recently a live art tradition as well, which is very powerful. It's more underground. It's more kind of happens in people's homes. But in a sense, the Iranians, in my experience, from even as a child, have always been extremely hungry for knowledge and discovering new things and playing with it and experimenting with it as well. So the pop music we talk, there's a wonderful tradition of pop music in Iran and crazy experimentations. I mean, my God, you can taking something from the northern part of Iran, which is extremely folky, and mixing it up with soul music, and the first time you really go, what the hell? But it is like that. So and the only thing I would say that in a way the Islamic revolution, and actually contrary to what a lot of people think, actually enabled, it helped the country grow up in some ways. It's sort of because the laws that were established, whatever you think of them, irrespective, was very much what a lot of people, the great majority of people, believed in. Number one, number two, it was done in their language. So it wasn't borrowed from the West, and sort of say, look, this is the way you're supposed to be, and we have to live up to that idea which comes from somewhere else. And there was lots of stuff wrong with it, but what it gave rise to was a kind of a critical discourse within, trying to check, okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this doesn't work. Women's participation in public life is a lot more. You can point out to judges and like a small group of really elite women pre-revolution, who had really big jobs, very small, Now you can point out to a large group of women in all sorts of things, So I think
that goes against what we're kind of led to believe in.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Because the Iranian Revolution was a massive event. it wasn't just a political event. It was really massive on all aspects, and I think it challenged, if you like, God, I hate these terms now, Western hegemony, in a way that had not been challenged before.
Yeah.
On a cultural level, on the personal level, on a political level, and it didn't have all to do with people who were in power. That was just a small part of it. It had to do with all kinds of changes that happened. A lot of people left, but a lot of people chose to stay as well. I mean, it's really interesting decisions. How do you choose to stay in a really difficult situation?
Yeah.
But you choose to stay, then the next generation grows up. Really interesting country in that way, which is never fairly portrayed.
Yeah.
In the West.
Yeah, there's so many misconceptions. I think I had lots of them myself. I was a pretty English kind of guy. Yeah, I'm still confident that I'm going to get over that at some point. I still feel pretty good about it. I think there's a lot changing over there at the minute. I was reading about the new airport they're building, and I think things are starting to move.
I think you should go. You should go. We should get you there as as who you are.
I think so. I think one day it will happen. I feel optimistic about it. Whether or not we'll get Chris de Burgh. So it turns out that all the Chris de Burgh lookalikes, none of them are working anymore. There's no demand for Chris de Burgh lookalikes in the UK.
No.
That's another
So I still think it would be probably
alternative
easier
cancer.
to get the actual Chris de Burgh to do it.
Yeah.
Has he never responded to you at all?
Well, I don't know if you've actually managed to make contact properly, officially.
the-
You were going to go to Ireland to find him, weren't you?
Yeah, I was given the great task of going to Ireland and get Chris de Burgh to come and do something. We were going to make complete fun of him, basically. So I almost felt like, how do I put this?
You were just going to go and knock on his door. We found the Chris de Burgh fan club, but I'm not sure if that still exists.
No, not really. So they're all going out of it. And that was one of the issues, in a sense, about, okay, why are we doing this project? Why do I want to sort of associate...
You didn't want to meet Chris de Burgh. You didn't want to go
Yeah, why do I want to associate myself with him? But now, you see, I think suddenly it's opened up some real possibilities. Do you want to talk about the project a little bit, in a sense? Because, of course... the Redux project that Richard does is really interesting, and it's funny because that was one of the ways we were trying to get Richard to go to Iran. We sort of said it's a Redux project, but it didn't make sense to them at all there because
in the context of a theatre festival.
But also like the locations and these are Hollywood movies where people have seen them. So Iranian films and also the political complications where it's corrupt.
Filming guerrilla style in the street might have been problematic.
Oh yeah, no, but we. I mean, I suggested in the process that look, why don't we do the Indiana Jones one? And then because Richard did some research and found the actual location. So if you look at the film, they turned the location to something completely different. It's like an old fashioned like 1920s, 30s, whatever it's set in. 30s probably, isn't it?
Yeah.
A traditional Arab market. So it doesn't look anything like the location.
And that's in Iran?
No, this is in Tunisia.
Oh, right.
It's in Tunisia.
Right.
But it's supposed to be Egypt.
It's supposed to be Egypt. So in a sense, suddenly, one of the things I really like about Richard's Redux is that you see the two locations. And there's a lot of, now the film that he's shot and the original film, like it's just on Brighton Rock, that was in the 50s, was it?
Actually set in the 30s, but made in the 40s. So it's quite hard to tell that difference from 2017.
But you see, even with such a distance, you still see in the two films, more or less, the kind of the similar architecture or similar areas, okay? But in this case, it's all... Tunisia is supposed to be Egypt, and it's completely distorted anyway. So we thought that when we do it here, we're going to do it here as part of an event called Junctures, which is happening. Yeah. That we should use the audience during the day. It's a day-long event. This to do guerrilla filmmaking, and this Cambridge Leisure Centre there, which, as you see, is the most artificial place you can, but in a sense it's perfect. What was that funny title we came up with in Indiana Jones and the
I can't remember now.
Nando's of Doom.
Yes,
because there's a Nando's.
The Cambridge Leisure Park is one of the most homogenised fake spaces in the world, so it kind of lends itself to a film set because it's all artificial.
But to this type of film where everything is artificial.
So could you not? You probably thought of this anyway. Could you not go to Iran as Chris de Burgh yourself?
I thought about that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I have the singing skills. I think I might be found out.
You have the singing skills.
Lady in red.
No.
Yeah, it's possible. I think I could go as an impersonator. I think the Iranians would. If I tried to be the actual Chris de Burgh, people would know that I wasn't the real Chris de Burgh.
Yeah, they would.
But I could go as leading UK Chris de Burgh, the only UK Chris de Burgh impersonator who's still working.
Yes.
And I could say the best working Chris de Burgh lookalike in the UK, Richard Dedomenici.
Yeah.
There are ways around it.
Something else has come up in a way, which in Puya, the sound electronic music composer, brought up in a way, but also again through Richard's work, is this reference to, on the one hand, Iranian pop music, but also English pop music. So how to take it beyond, keeping Chris de Burgh as its original centre, for comedic reasons, but to create new karaoke's for people to perform, and both Iranian karaoke songs, interesting ones that people can choose themselves, send us requests, and English ones, but the karaoke that we create then is going to be more of an artistic product. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than
because karaoke is a concept of having words on screens and typical karaoke machines. I don't think are that popular in Iran. People sing songs, but it's normally in a more informal, ad hoc manner. They don't have the kind of Japanese technology in public places anyway.
No, because it's just ad hoc. It happens.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable about it. They don't need the machine.
But I've developed a portable karaoke, or kind of wearable karaoke system, because karaoke is great, but normally it's fixed because there's like a big mic and amps and stuff and equipment. So I've been developing a kind of portable karaoke system, which unfortunately, some of the previous prototypes looked a bit like a bomb vest because it had wires and stuff. It's quite bulky.
Could be problematic.
It's quite bulky, and I tested it out in the London Underground once, and I got some very
lucky you didn't get shot.
It's a story of my life. So I think I've found some interesting karaoke software. The fact that it doesn't really exist as an art, I'd be willing to call karaoke an art form. The fact that karaoke doesn't really exist as a concept in Iran, I find interesting, and the only Persian karaoke we found is sort of diasporic. So it'd be interesting to see how you can use karaoke as a method for cultural exchange, because the fact that you have lyrics on screen mean that you can have simultaneous translation. It can be a learning tool. So I think using karaoke as a kind of a way to propagate the international exchange of terrible pop might be one of our methods of taking the project into a new post Chris de Burgh phase. Because as many people have pointed out, Chris de Burgh was only super famous 20 or 30 years ago in Iran, right? It's not a current thing. Iranians aren't crazy for Chris de Burgh now.
15 years ago.
It's like a kind of 80s kind of. So really, it's not. Chris de Burgh is becoming increasingly irrelevant in Iran as well as in the rest of the world.
Hence
your disdain.
Also my doubt about the project at the beginning of time.
Because it was always a very archaic thing. But I think out of this weird, spurious concept that Anthony Roberts dreamt up, I think have come some quite pertinent and interesting areas of potential.
Where's he based?
Colchester,
of course, Art Centre. But also it's interesting because the notion of diversity is all big and important, and I've been pushed into it automatically because of who I am and blah blah blah. But I mean, in a sense, without wanting to simplify it too much, there has been two trends to this. One is people who are very much about ethnic identity, and creating stuff like that. And so what's great, I think, about this project is that it completely doesn't do that, and it kind of mixes it up. I was doing, you've done Pandemonium, haven't you? I was doing it in Cambridge the other night.
Which is a kind of live quiz show comedy night where a series of contestants have to come up with puns based on criteria that are selected by the audience live. So you kind of instantly have to think up jokes, which I've hosted it and I've competed in it, and I thought I'd be quite good at it. It was terrifying.
Oh,
You know,
it's
your mind just goes
terrifying.
blank. You've got like a minute to come up with a joke about wasps and washing up powder, and you're trying to write stuff. All the other people are like scribbling stuff down, and then you have to go up on stage. You've got nothing, and you just have to randomly just say words. All the wasps, wash the wasps. Oh, what about and everyone's just looking at you going,
what? but also what it is that you sort of you literally have to think there and then do it. And I kind of decided to play around with some Farsi words, you know, and just because I said at the beginning this is my first language is not English, but my mother tongue is Farsi, and that's where my instincts lie.
Right.
Even though I don't speak as well now, but it was interesting. But I did manage to get everybody to shout. Ridi in Farsi, which means you shut on me.
Really? That's good.
I just thought, you know, I sat down, part of me, like the Iranian, you know, the identity Iranian, you are represent. For shame on you.
Yeah,
you know, but the other part,
I agree.
Oh, that was cool. I got a whole lot of I hate to put it like this, but a whole completely white people, you know, saying Farsi,
Shouting shit on me. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So this project, I think, once I ran from you, you know, in a sense, that has that, I think, possibility as well. You know, through people get up and dance and just are exposed to. And the version that you saw was the very first, you know, the raw version, obviously, of it.
So you'll be doing that again?
Yeah, at the next edition of Junctures, which is an annual event that Mehrdad organises.
That's on 24th of March, which is all sorts of other crazy stuff going on, and this one will be there as well.
That should be free.
So hopefully with come definitely. We should develop it further, and in it, hopefully, we'll do that Redux thing with the Indiana
Yes,
Jones.
you're very excited to play Indiana Jones, aren't you? I'm quite excited to play the guy with the swords. Well, just film it out in the leisure park, it'll be fine.
The leisure park, or if not, then if they throw us out, your plan was to go in the car park.
Yeah, well, Cambridge Leisure Park is an interesting example of, you know, private space that looks like public space, but if you do anything slightly wrong, or if you don't consume properly on Cambridge Leisure Park, you'll be kicked off immediately. It's a weird kind of temporary autonomous zone, but it's not autonomous. It's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how quickly we can film that scene before we get kicked out.
Indeed.
What more can I say about their work that they haven't said already, other than to remind you of their up and coming shows? Richard will be in Lancaster with his piece, An Architecture, that continues the theme of a previous work shown in this YouTube video, which will be on the podcast show notes. They will both be returning with their performance presentation, Once I Ran to You, in March at the Cambridge Junction, along with other artists and interdisciplinary performances. Details can be found on their websites, dedomenici.com and 30bird.org, and those will be on the podcast show notes as well. Next week's episode will be with Tuna and Seda from the Istanbul Queer Art Collective, where they talk about the fluxus movement of the 1960s and Jack Halberstam's The Queer Art of Failure. We also talk about their own performances in Turkey and their performance at the Deep Trash at the Underworld in the Bethnal Green Working Man's Club. They also have a performance evening coming up on the 1st of February called Turkish Delight, which will be a bilingual evening of English and Turkish with performance artists on the theme of Turkey.
Welcome to Tobi's Art Performed podcast. On this platform, Tobi will engage with various artists and consumers of art about their passions and interests.
My name is Mehrdad Seyf.
My name is Richard Dedomenici.
And I am an interdisciplinary artist.
And so am I.